Next item, and actually just before we do, there's coffee and tea that's come in. I propose that we just truck on with this. If you want to grab a coffee, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll move on to Sam's, if that's all right, sure. Which is just the next one over, which, from what I understand, is also something pretty important to our community and to the council that represents them. Our community, Vicky. Because there's some pretty key. Actually, I don't actually think there'll be a ward which this doesn't affect.
Through these a number of times, and what's actually being suggested? I was struggling to find them. I'm sorry.
So when we first came to you,
one page over, Yanni.
Can I just bring your attention to page 99? Recommendation 93, 92, 93 and 94. Yeah. Page 99. That's where the officer recommendation is, you'll see on the left-hand column, to delete all Category 2 character areas and delete all rules relating to Category 2 category areas. So this is the part, this is...
So what's the impact of that?
The impact of that is... there's a number of listed. It was the ones, Fendleton is in there. I haven't got the list right near me, but there's all the Category 2, which is, there are a substantial number of areas. They did not meet the base assessment of having a high level of integrity in terms of character. But at the request of council, we included them back in and put in some rules that may give lead to some positive outcomes, but they're more to do with amenity rather than character, because the character in those areas, has been lost. Yep. Or it never was that apparent what it was. For example, Pendleton's the one that I'm very familiar, because it's quite a large area to go, potentially. But that was really about the level of open space that was provided within sites, because they're very, very large sites. But
it was only about 5 or 10 square metres more, though, wasn't it, from memory?
Oh, well, if you really wanted to protect what that character is, we were saying that the standard you'd need to be put in place was to have a minimum site size of 800 square metres. Now, that would significantly impinge on the development potential of that area. But what makes it unique, or what makes the amenity high in that area, is the big trees. It's the open space. It's a lack of development. What we're saying, though, in terms of special character, now we have got, since the draft, the strategic directions have come out, and they are making it very clear that we need to, again, remove this level of regulation and unnecessary prescriptiveness and, give rise to unnecessary transaction costs. It is council officers' firm position that the Category 2 areas, if we provide an additional level of regulation for them, it will lead to additional transaction costs and unnecessary resource consenting. Because in practice, once someone applies for resource consent, all that's going to happen is the council officer is going to assess it against effects, assess it the fact that, well, there isn't a cohesive character in the area, and therefore grant it. So they've gone down the process, most likely, of having to get a consent for something that really has gone. So
which though surely in turn though would then mean that perhaps someone looking at subdividing something would then go, do you know what, this isn't the easiest or the most business friendly place to do it. So due to the barriers that I do see here, well, perhaps to go to an area that the council hasn't classed as, or Category 1 or Category 2.
Yes, so, and we're certainly saying for Category 1 that those areas are special. They are unique, and therefore they do warrant a level of regulation. We're just saying for the Category 2, to be consistent with the strategic directions, particularly objective 3.3.2, which is about clarity of language and efficiency, that we cannot support the inclusion of Category 2. Now, they will not be on the maps that you've had produced, because they've been produced based on the council officer recommendations. What I do have sitting down here is a set of maps showing you the Category 1 and Category 2 areas.
Okay, so was the Pereri Street, not Pereri, the area around the university, was that a 1 or a 2?
One moment.
One moment, please, Paula.
Just- Pereri is Category 2.
Category 2. So that whole area would...
That whole area would not be included.
And nor will the Fendleton one.
No, neither would Fendleton, no.
And what were the other Category 2 ones?
Is this different than what's on page 119?
Page 119.
Attachment 1 in there? The areas?
Where are you reading from?
119 of the spiral bound
119.
document.
Oh, the purple ones.
Yeah, that's Category 2, the purple, and the gold is Category 1. Character.
Yeah, most of Fendleton.
Oh, yes, I include. Here you go.
Exactly the same.
Don't even know what I did last week, did I?
Yes.
The council guys, I'm here to help.
Right. So category 1 are the gold ones. And category 2 are the purple ones.
So how do
the
we-
purple ones would be proposed to be deleted.
So that will go down like...
About
six.
half a spatial area. You'll see there is the spatial area in totaled. For Category 1, it's 285,000 square metres, and Category 2 was a total of 706.
Okay, a question for you, my lovely experts here, just to perhaps try and just truncate this a bit. Let's assume that the mind of the people sitting in this room that are elected members is very similar to the last one. Understand what the planning advice is around it. Let's say the elected members felt this was a battle that they wanted to pick and was important to their community. What would you recommend that we do at this point? May it just be last time that there has to be perhaps someone else that presents that?
The difficulty you will find is that if you change it, having any evidence lead that's going to support the inclusion, because we believe we've taken a very pragmatic approach to assessing these areas. The evidence the facts or the assessment speaks for themselves now. And to have someone would have to go out there and reassess and come to some different conclusion to support the retention based on deeming them to be special enough to justify regulation. I think you will find very difficult to find someone to support an alternative approach.
Okay, but I guess the thing is, at times elected members do make that call where you're looking at an outcome, but you're also balancing the political realities, and that's why we're elected members and not robots, and or we're even company directors.
There's quite a lot of people who live in them who would think that.
And I guess just following on with what Vicky said for the last example and the commentary that went around that about a quality of life both now and for the future, people have made a decision to perhaps be in an area which was classed a particular way, and then to remove that is quite a radical change, potentially on contradicting the reasons that they might have even moved into that area. Yeah, I understand that perhaps through a resource consent process, a subdivision may be able to go ahead anyway. But I think from certainly a political point of view, Vicky's absolutely right. It will go down like a cup of cold sick, and there's no way I'm actually going from everything that I've learned over the past 4 years to go through and actually put my name to that. So that's just something that I'm personally not comfortable with, to take away the character area 2 that we designated there. I totally appreciate all the advice that you've got around
May I
it, but
just
it's
make
just...
the comment though, you can still use other methods. You can still use design guides. You can still identify an area. It's just that we're not saying it should be, all of these areas should be regulated under the district plan. You can still, the design guides have been quite successful and used through subdivision consents. You can still use those, but it really comes down to what is the most appropriate method. And it's not to say, even if the community start, by even taking the approach of only regulating the Category 1, it may be that the community does submit highly on this matter, and then through that process. But at the moment, we actually don't have a good indication about how wide a support these character areas do have. We have anecdotal sort of advice.
I think we've got really good, clear public indication around what they feel, and that's through Share an Idea and also the Central City Special Amenity Areas, where over, I don't know the exact figure, but I'm thinking it was about 99%, maybe 95%, hundreds of submissions in support of retaining special amenity areas from our community. Now, we know the government ignored that, but there was huge public support for special amenity areas being retained and being strengthened and not being weakened and removed. So I think this is basically just like the last one. I just think we quote that we want to ensure that Christchurch is a place where people wish to live, and we actually want to see a high quality recovery and rebuild, and that these character areas actually contribute to that. Because I actually think people do like living in neighbourhoods that have identity and uniqueness and special characteristics. So I just think we've done the work. Staff have already refined it from previously. So I think we should just vote on retaining them. And I think staff have already done the work to justify it, but we might need more independent.
I've got Ellie, then Jimmy.
Mine is a question around Emmett Street and the recommendation to remove that. That seems to be based on the Housing New Zealand development for the area that could be problematic if the SAM remained or if the character area remained. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a pretty succinct summary.
Okay, that's cool. I'm not trying to score points. I'm just trying to get it straight in my head. So, is there anything could we put something in place that would require the developments by Housing New Zealand to take into consideration the special heritage elements of the properties in the area, the trees and so forth, so that they can still develop and do what they want to do, but not at the expense of an area that is acknowledged by staff, in fact, when they say regrettably, you're suggesting it goes, we don't lose an area as a result.
What you're suggesting relates to the other methods that Sarah was discussing. What Sarah's been saying all along is that yes, we think SAMs are a good idea, however we don't have sufficient evidence to say that we can support the Category 2, of which Emmett Street is one.
No, Emmett Street's a Category 1.
Oh, beg your pardon.
Emmett Street, the thing with yes, we have suggested, and in fact the wording was, we would hope that through their development, and I don't know the mechanism that's appropriate, to try and build that into with Housing New Zealand, but that they do look at the area and do design it sympathetic to the area and certainly retain those mature trees on the side. But that has to be something separate from the district plan. Because
that though, as we were talking about before with regards to the Homestar, you can hope and rely on or hope that people will do the right thing or that they will take. What we need is something that will actually give us a bit more surety. I mean, that's a heck of a thing to do for people living in a CO1 area in Shirley, already been slammed because of the quakes and the infrastructure damage, to remove the area as a character or a special area because someone wants to do some major development. Yes. I can't rationalise that.
Yep. Look, council officers, we found this one very, very difficult, and we toed and fro, but in terms of what our recommendation would be. We looked also a bit wider in saying, I think it was the area, there were other areas that provided we retained those. I think I listed the name of the other character, and within Christchurch, that would sort of keep that social and architectural history elsewhere in the city. This was a particular site that we know that they want to. I suppose the development plans that they've looked at wouldn't be able to incorporate the existing buildings, so they would be, going essentially clearing the site and redeveloping and maximising the development potential. Just where each house is situated, it's quite, they're quite big sites. They sit far back from the road. That's what makes it unique, certainly. This is essentially what we considered is the fact that no, they would lose that character area. There would be no way to retain those buildings and to comprehensively develop that site. And because they own, all of these sites, it was weighing up, is that more important than retaining the character? Is achieving some of these other outcomes that's sought through the strategic directions more important than retaining special character? And because it was multiple properties owned by one housing provider, they were a social housing provider. In this case, it was that difficult situation where council officers are saying, well, given the strategic directions, those outcomes, override the character. So that is simply, what we could look at is, our last sort of comment there about making sure that it's comprehensive and empathetic. Yes, well, we could look at some assessment matters for the site. We could look at some, again, design guides for the site. None of that has been. I'm not aware of any discussions. Josie Schroeder is not here. She may be more party to some of the one-on-one discussions with Housing New Zealand. But we can look at doing that. But we'd have to bring that back to you.
Character in this part of Shirley.
There are regular discussions with Housing New Zealand done through another part of the Strategy and Planning Group, through Carolyn Ingall's group, and we can relay these thoughts through those meetings, most definitely. But that isn't regulatory, then it still won't be regulatory in the district plan.
Okay, can I appeal to my colleagues here? Because actually I don't know whether you would support it anyway, but I see this as a thin edge of the wedge, and if this can be done in St Albans and Shirley, this can be done anywhere else. And I don't think that it's a good enough argument to say that we'll retain the type of history and character of this Shirley area in other parts of the city. These are personal and essential to parts of the city.
And these neighbourhoods mean something very special to the people who live there. Okay. Obviously, they can't be quantified. Those emotions cannot be quantified in neat, provable points. That's just the nature of the human condition. So I have very little respect for rules that just are so neat that humans can't fit into them. So I'm totally fine with Sam's. I think that if people want them, great. That's actually what the plan is about.
So what do you, I've got Paul for another question after you, but so what are you specifically asking? No.
In terms of negotiating the best outcome for some development there. But if we take all this out and just crumple now, we've got nothing. I mean, I'm happy that there is intensification as well in some of these areas, as long as it's done well, with some urban design, which won't be.
All right.
You could retain the character area, and through mediation or through council submission between now and then, have some discussions with Housing New Zealand and try and come up with a.
That's how you do
Okay.
what you want to do.
So then I've got Paul, and then there's Yanni, and then there's Glenn, and then we'll make a decision.
I mean, I drive around Christchurch quite a lot, and I'd have to say that largely the horse is bolted. If you drive down most streets, there's a modern house in an older developed area. And I just sometimes just wonder, through progress, things do change eventually, and you might even find new characteristics develop. So the question probably is, has the horse bolted? And can we stop it from actually bolting further?
Yes, for category 2, it has bolted. That's exactly what we are saying. For category 1, no. There is an 80% level of, what we call primary sites, where they do demonstrate the characteristics that we have listed or identified in the policy, which make an area special. That's exactly what we are saying. And you will know when you drive down these category 1 streets and you look at them and you read the policy and then you look at the street, you will see that they are different, they are unique. That's why we're saying they're the ones we need to focus on and put our most attention into trying to continue to retain.
The second part of that question then is that by going to the distance of actually pushing to keep category 2, could that actually interfere with trying to retain the category 1 to the level we want to retain it by being so staunch on expanding it, if you know what I mean?
I hope that the evidence that we put forward will demonstrate that category 1, we will be certainly differentiating between category 1 and category 2, so that we hope that that does not happen, but that is a risk. That would certainly be a risk.
Cool. And I've got Yanni and then Glenn.
So as part of the land use recovery plan, Housing New Zealand was supposed to do area-wide master plans for intensive housing areas. To the best of my knowledge, not a single one has been done. We were supposed to have a meeting this week. I think it's just being postponed. So, I think we do need to keep something in this plan. And again, just come back to the point that these areas have an intrinsic value. If you talk to our heritage people, our tourism people, one of the reasons people came to Christchurch was because of our heritage and our character. So, I think we've already changed the special amenity areas in this category 2 section from a bit of a tighter, restrictive rules to more kind of assessment around the streetscape. So personally, I think we just need to stand firm on this. And we probably do need to start actually asking Housing New Zealand where their master plans are for these intensive development areas. I mean, I just know originally what they proposed to do in Richmond was totally out of character with that local neighbourhood. It was just really, far too excessive in terms of the density and the aspect. So, yeah, I just think we should just vote on this and move on, but I'd support retaining what we've got.
Yep. And hold your horses. Glenn may throw us all off with a curveball.
No, fully support that, no problem there. But I've seen Housing New Zealand change in Aranui with proposals there. So I'm sure both with this and at local level, some of the outcomes that we really want can be achieved.
All right then, guys, I think we should stop beating around the bush, and I like this as much as Yanni go head to head sometimes. Once in a blue moon, we do agree, and I would be absolutely delighted to move this. And Yanni, would you second me with this? I'll tell you what it's for. Just to simply, like last time, simply change delete to retain. So retain category 2 character areas, and the one that also says delete all rules or draft provisions, just change delete to retain. Is that fine, Brigitte, or is there something else that we'd need to do?
Well, there are quite a few categories. So Auburn Avenue, Riccarton. So you're keeping that the same. So that's still no change.
So it's only regarding
Yeah.
Emmett Street.
I think, well, that would do it, won't it? Because that will stay no change.
Well, Emmett Street was a different recommendation, but, yeah, so you would need
So
to
wherever it
retain.
says delete, say retain.
Yeah.
And wherever it says no change, that remains as no
Exactly.
change.
So anything that says delete, we change to retain.
That's right.
And that really covers it.
No, just to confirm, Auburn Street, we didn't recommend it being removed anyway.
That's
No,
right.
no, so that no
so
change obviously
stays
remains no change.
That's correct.
Evidence, so if we have a really clear record, so that we can have a process.
I mean,
I'm not sure why you're doing that.
So that we don't lose track of it, so, because I know that this will be really rushed by the time
I don't
it
think
gets
we're going to be
notified.
losing track of it.
Okay, you sure?
Expert witnesses will be called in as they're needed.
Absolutely.
Yes, but we want, as councillors, we want some oversight over the evidence that we're providing on these sensitive ones, because we don't want to put you in a bad position of trying to defend the things that you've previously commented on.
Evidence is left to whoever is giving evidence. That is their evidence. It's not written by yourselves.
No, but we can commission the evidence and have some oversight of what evidence we think is needed.
I think we're running the risk of overcomplicating this more than we
That's
need to.
right.
Also, just that I don't think we need regarding Emmett Street Shirley.
No, we've just got.
No, do you mind if we just put this to a vote? It's just recommendation 93, 94 on page blah, blah, blah. Just change the word delete to retain regarding category 2 character areas. That covers everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need the Emmett Street Shirley, do you?
Emmett Street is a category 1. So just, yep.
And retain Emmett Street. Yeah, and retain
So they
Emmett
retain-
Street.
And retain
category.
Emmett Street as a category
Yep.
1
Yep.
character area.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I would say to this is I think that, well, the planning advice has been completely correct. I think that it's looking backwards, and I see the category 2 is actually looking forwards, because every time I go into a community board meeting in these areas, people have actually moved into these spaces because of the SAM. They don't want this taken away. That's why they're there. So, I understand the planning advice. I appreciate it, but I don't feel comfortable with it. In the past, I've sometimes been swayed by that, but I back my gut, and there's no way I'm deviating from this, rightly or wrongly. I want this retained. I believe that everyone else here feels the same way. This is a battle I'm prepared to take on, and I'm delighted to move it. Yanni is delighted to second it, and may I ask those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Okay.